Happy almost New Year, folks, and welcome to my final Friday Night SmackDown review of 2024 for the December 27, 2024 episode. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great one. This was also the final Friday Night SmackDown 2-hour episode for the foreseeable future, unfortunately. And honestly, if this show is any indication of what SmackDown might look like in 2025 as a 3-fucking-hour show, then we are fucked, ladies and gentlemen. We are fucking fucked if this is the show that we are getting as a 3-hour show starting in 2025. SmackDown for the better part of 2024 was a very good show. It had its peaks and valleys, highs and lows, but I would say on the whole, for the last couple of months anyways, at least since like late September, and we've been breaking down a lot of the shows here in the channel. Excluding last week, I had a holiday party to attend and a whole lot of shit going on. I talked about that in the community tab. I mentioned to you guys that I would not be doing a SmackDown audio review, and I wasn't at the show 2 weeks ago anyway when they taped it, so I figured, why the fuck not, we'll just skip this week. So I'm back at it this week. But every other week, for the most part, for the last couple of months, we've been talking about how good SmackDown has been. This was not one of those shows. I thought the closing angle was really well done, but I thought there was a lot of filler, and the fact they advertised nothing coming into the show before, I think they advertised that 6-woman tag team match mere hours before the episode. Only after WrestleVotes did it first, they announced on Twitter mere hours beforehand that we would be getting that 6-woman tag team match that opened up the show. But everything else about the episode, we did not know. They announced matches last minute between the Street Profits and Los Garza. They announced it during the show. Sami Zayn versus Carmelo Hayes. The whole Kevin Owens thing was kind of known going into the show. Not really, but even Braun Strowman versus Austin Theory, another match that was put together on the spot on the show, and it really didn't mean anything. It is very clear currently that SmackDown specifically is in a holding pattern until Raw goes to Netflix. We don't know what the rosters are going to look like. We don't know who's going to be on what fucking show. And clearly, SmackDown is not a priority. I mean, that was never more evident to me than it was while watching this show. Last week's show, you can, pick it up, throw it in the garbage. It was a taped show. They taped it the week before due to the holidays, and the talent got an extra week off, and that's great. This was a live show. This was a live show in Tampa, and a lot of what we got on the show meant absolutely nothing. And even with what they advertised for next week, doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence that they know what they're doing with this show going into the new year. And Raw is all eyes are on Raw right now, going to Netflix, and that's their big priority, and that's fine. But they also should be focusing on SmackDown. All the hype around Raw on Netflix should not be coming at the expense of SmackDown, and now it is. You can pretty much bet the bottom dollar that Roman Reigns is going to Raw as part of this transfer portal or whatever the fuck you want to call it. We haven't seen any superstars officially switch shows yet. Braun Strowman did. I know he was one of them. I was going to say aside from Braun Strowman 2 weeks ago. But beyond him, I don't think anyone has actually officially switched shows. We don't know when this transfer portal is over, this trade window is up. We have no idea. They really haven't clarified that. But it was very clear to me while watching this show, they don't give a fuck about SmackDown. And the worst part is, this show is going to 3 hours starting next week. A 3-hour SmackDown of this shit every single fucking week. Like I said, we are fucked if they don't start putting more effort into the show. And you can tell me, it's only for a couple of weeks until Raw goes to Netflix and then things will be back to normal. We don't know that. We really don't know that for a fact. We'll find out in due time, but I'm not confident that SmackDown will be anywhere near the same, type of priority that Raw is right now. And we saw the same thing when SmackDown went to Fox 5 years ago. The biggest difference then, the creative effort on both brands sucked equally. SmackDown Fox on Fox was pretty fucking awful, so it kind of felt like they were putting all their eggs in that one basket. That show sucked just as much as Raw did at that point with Vince McMahon as the helm, with Vince McMahon at the helm rather. Hopefully that's not the case this time around with Raw on Netflix or SmackDown on the USA, but I am not at all optimistic. And that was a 2-hour SmackDown. A 3-hour SmackDown, a show without direction, is going to suffer considerably. So hopefully they can avoid that. They open up the show with the aforementioned 6-woman tag team match. Naomi, Bayley, in the one half of the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Bianca Belair, knocking off Candice LeRae, Tiffany Stratton, and the WWE Women's Champion, Nia Jax. Now, I don't know if Naomi is officially the other half of the WWE Tag Team Champions yet. I don't think so. I know she's coming out with the belt, but most of the time I go off of what WWE says on their own website. On WWE.com, under the Champions page, Bianca and Jade are still currently listed as the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions. Let me check the results page of SmackDown. They don't list Bianca as one half of the WWE Tag Team Champions under the results page for SmackDown, so they don't do it for Naomi either. But Naomi was holding the other half of the championships during her entrance, after the match, so if it's not, already official, it might soon be that Naomi is going to be the other half of the WWE Tag Team Champion. So hopefully they can kind of clear that up and make that official soon, just for clarity's sake. I'm a stickler for that sort of stuff. They may not. They might just leave it ambiguous until Jade Cargill comes back. But regardless, they did win this match. Naomi pinned Candice. Apparently that was enough to earn her another opportunity at the WWE Women's Championship against Nia Jax on next week's show. Now, mind you, she already unsuccessfully challenged Nia Jax on SmackDown a month and a half ago, and they had a good match in the main event of SmackDown, but there's no reason for them to run it back. Since then, Bianca has actually pinned Nia Jax. She pinned Nia Jax not even in a tag team match, but rather in a fucking singles match in the main event of Raw right before War Games Survivor Series a month ago. Obviously, we're supposed to forget about that, but Bianca did pin Nia Jax. Nothing ever came of it. They've had tag team matches since then, including on the show, but they never acknowledged it. I know Bianca's sights might not be on the WWE Women's Championship right now, but they really should have given her the title shot instead. And for those thinking, well, surely Naomi's getting the shot because there's going to be some sort of an angle, there very well might be. That might be where Naomi gets her shot, and then Jade comes out to cost her the match, because Jade knows something that we don't, in that Naomi was the one who attacked Jade backstage a couple of weeks ago. I wouldn't be surprised that that's where they were going with this. I just wish they made more of a concerted effort to make sense of why Naomi's getting a title shot and these other women are not. Yeah, she pinned Candice here, but so is pretty much everyone else on the roster. That's not enough to earn her another opportunity at the championship. Now, a couple other news and notes here. Before the match, Nia Jax did play up the idea of Bianca being the one who attacked Jade, and, you were the big star in town before Jade showed up. Maybe you were jealous and wanted to get rid of her. You found a new partner pretty quickly. The fact that she outright acknowledged Bianca as a suspect means that it was not Bianca. I'm honestly kind of surprised that she would play up the possibility of it being Bianca before she would play up the possibility of it being Bayley. Given Bayley's past issues with Bianca, and Bianca's never really trusted her and all this other sort of stuff. Naomi gained a lot more from Jade going down than Bayley did. Bayley took Jade's spot in War Games, but in the end, what the fuck did that even matter? You know what I mean? The match sucked and they won, sure, but why would Bayley attack Jade again on War Games? Who gives a shit? It was clearly Naomi. I'm glad it's going to be Naomi, but the fact they haven't even acknowledged that possibility yet pretty much, tells you that they don't want you to think about that idea, because that probably is where they're going with it. And they want it to be a bigger shock when it happens for those that aren't thinking about it. But I thought the match was good here. The other thing about this whole thing, we really got to hurry this the fuck up and get to the Money in the Bank cash-in already. The constant teases, they were fine for the first few months. It's been almost 6 months since Tiffany Stratton won the Women's Money in the Bank ladder match. She has teased cashing in no less than a dozen times. I would not be fucking shocked if it was close to 12, if not more times than that, since she won the briefcase in July. It's got to be at least 24 at this point. It is a weekly occurrence at this point with her attempting or teasing a cash-in. It's ridiculous. And at this point, it looks like she might be going babyface, which isn't necessarily the worst thing, but they have to make sense of it. They have to endear her to the audience enough to where people will accept her as a babyface. And she is over enough to where I think it will work, but they got to hurry up and get to that point. I think we might get the cash-in next week, the first SmackDown of 2025, new champion. That would be a nice way to kick things off. Maybe we get Tiffany and Nia Jax at the Royal Rumble, and then that can pave the way for Tiffany Stratton versus Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania. This time with Charlotte as the heel and Tiffany as the babyface. I say this time like they had a previous match. They haven't, to my knowledge, unless they did the match in NXT and I'm forgetting. But I was initially thinking Tiffany would win the belt as a heel. Charlotte comes back as a babyface and faces her. I feel like at this point, the roles being reversed would make more sense. Charlotte Flair being the heel and Tiffany being the babyface. But I guess we'll find out in due time if that is indeed the plan, but I thought this was a good match to kick off the show. I just don't really like the booking decision of Naomi being the one who's getting a title shot and not Bianca or even Bayley. I mean, Bayley's got enough title shots. She got a rematch with Bad Blood and lost, but you would think of anyone on this team that would get another title shot, it would be Bianca and not Bayley, or rather, Naomi. Braun Strowman versus Austin Theory, as I mentioned, an impromptu match. Who gives a shit? It was about 7-8 minutes long. So you would think on paper, oh, it must have been competitive. I mean, I guess, but the outcome was never in doubt. No one gives a fuck about Austin Theory at this point. All the talk about, oh, is he going to turn on Grayson Waller and vice versa? Is he going to be a breakout babyface? If and when it does happen, I would be shocked if anyone gave a shit. Maybe for the initial turn on Waller, but long term, I want to think that Theory has a future as a face or at least just as a single star again, but the dragged out tension with these two has been so nauseating. And I'll give Triple H credit, and even, Tony Khan as well, for the long-term storytelling. But there is such thing in wrestling. Shout out to Tony Khan and Triple H here for not really understanding this. There is such thing as dragging out a story for too long, to the point where people do not care. And I feel like we're at that point now with the Money in the Bank cash-in and shit, which will get a great pop because it always does. But the Theory in Waller thing specifically, at least with Nia Jax and Tiffany, they've managed to keep it interesting and people are still somewhat into it. This I'm not into. Most people are not into it. Who gives a fuck? Braun Strowman was doing his train thing around the ring. Waller moved out of the way. Strowman ran down Theory instead. Again, teasing tension. I don't care. Strowman wins. That was it. We had the United States Championship celebration, or rather the Women's United States Championship celebration, for the first, the only, the tallest, the prettiest, in her own words, Women's United States Champion Chelsea Green. I really didn't mind this as much as most people. I'm not going to sit here and say it was an extremely entertaining, white-hot television segment. The crowd did not care. The crowd was largely quiet. Chelsea Green is over by and large with most of the crowd, most crowds each week. This was not one of them. I think it was just the execution of the segment. The way it looked was great. I thought Chelsea Green played her role well. Piper Niven especially played her role well. Michin's not nearly as over, so when she came out, people were like, okay. We already saw Chelsea Green beat this woman at Saturday night's main event. And before that, they feuded for a few weeks in the dumpster match. They had a match before that. They've had enough matches on SmackDown to last a lifetime at this point. And it may not be in the John Cena, Randy Orton territory of the amount of matches they've had with each other, but it's at a point now where I really don't care. I know Chelsea Green beat her with help from Piper Niven at the event, at Saturday night's main event a couple of weeks ago. It's not exactly a rematch I'm clamoring to see. It feels like busy work for Chelsea before they find a new challenger for her, so Michin came out, crashed the segment, and that was it. The segment itself was not great. I didn't mind it as much as most other people did, like I said before, but did not make for great television considering the crowd was quiet. They didn't really care in the end, but at least they established the feud is not over for those that care. So we had a segment earlier on in the episode where Nick Aldis called over DIY, where the Street Profits were. Now, we have not seen the Profits since they were attacked backstage 3 weeks ago. That was the same show where DIY stepped up, turned heel on the Motor City Machine Guns, and became the new WWE Tag Team Champions. Now, why would no one automatically assume, and I guess Nick Aldis was smart enough to assume, that it was DIY who attacked the Profits to allow themselves to become champions? They turned heel on that same show. Now, obviously, he assumed enough to call them into question here. It's not like they're acting like they're completely innocent, because they already turned heel and did some nefarious shit a couple of weeks ago. But, they had this whole segment here where they called over Pretty Deadly, these eyewitnesses, so to speak, and before they could say Gargano, they said Garza. I guess because they had DIY confront Pretty Deadly later on, and they were like, oh, what are you doing? And Pretty Deadly said, well, we're doing that because we want something out of it. Obviously hinting at a WWE Tag Team title match. And then DIY said, well, we'll go talk to Nick Aldis about getting you guys a match. That meant to me, they're not going to give them a tag team title shot. They're going to give them a match with fucking Braun Strowman or some shit to get run over by him and squashed in a handicap match. That's the only thing I can think of. I doubt DIY being heels now would actually award these guys or reward them for lying. And the Profits bought it. BFAB bought it. They were like, oh, Los Garza attacked us. Let's go after him. So they had the match, and they had a very good match. There was, plenty of action. Both teams were impressive, a fun match. The match didn't really mean anything. It was a meaningless filler match. Can we hurry this the fuck up and just get to the Triple Threat Tag Team title match? And it's not a lack of patience either. I just want to get that over with before, A, any of those guys move to Raw in this as part of the transfer window, the transfer portal, whatever. And B, so we can finally focus on pushing Montez forward, which will not happen as long as this feud is going on. They've been more aggressive, showing more of an edge. That's great, but it won't mean anything if they're just dragging this out. Are we getting the Triple Threat Tag Team title match at WrestleMania? That would be great, but that's in like 4 months. That's way too far away. They got to do it soon. It's not next week in the first SmackDown of the year. They're really taking their time with this. So then the worst part was, backstage afterward, BFAB and the Profits confronted Pretty Deadly, who had just interacted with DIY. And they said to Pretty Deadly, oh, thanks for letting us know that Garza was the one who attacked us. And they were like, oh yeah, no problem. And then Apollo Crews shows up, and the attack happened 3 weeks ago, mind you. Apollo Crews shows up and says, hey, by the way, guys, I was there as well. It was DIY that attacked you, not Los Garza, just to let you guys know. So obviously Pretty Deadly lied, and they all acted shocked. The Motor City Machine Guns were there as well. They were like, oh my God, are you serious? Like, no fucking shit. These were the same guys who turned heel on that same show. They made everyone here look like a complete fucking idiot, including Apollo Crews, who at this point is a lost cause. But why wouldn't he not have come forward with who attacked the Profits 3 weeks sooner on that same show, the following week, last week, earlier in the night on this show? Wasn't like he was booked and busy. So this whole thing was just dumb. It was a waste of a week to be like, okay, we'll progress the feud here. They could have just revealed it to be DIY. They just did this again, it was a filler week before we get to the next step of the storyline. But it's progressing at a snail's pace. The new tag team champions, the DIY thing I thought was cool, but this was a waste. So we got Sami Zayn versus Carmelo Hayes on the show. Yeah, it came completely out of nowhere, but Sami Zayn showed up backstage, confronted Nick Aldis earlier in the night, and he said, I saw Drew McIntyre was on the show for back-to-back weeks. I wanted to scout SmackDown as well, so here I am. Now, he didn't say that he was... So they went to commercial before they finished the conversation, and then they came back. When they went to commercial, it kind of sounded like he was like, oh, Nick Aldis, he's got something to tell him, which was a nice cliffhanger, and I'm thinking, okay, he wants to tell Nick Aldis that he wants to join SmackDown, get away from Drew, who he lost to again on the taped Raw this past week. Now he might join SmackDown. Cool. But we come back from commercial, and he just says, oh, yeah, I saw Drew was on the show, and I want to come to SmackDown as well, and they set up a match with him and Carmelo Hayes because Carmelo Hayes interrupted him backstage while he was talking to Nick Aldis. So again, another meaningless match. It was a very fun match. Ended in a no contest after interference from the Bloodline, and Braun Strowman brawled with Carmelo backstage, or to the backstage area. So no decisive finish, and that's fine. But again, the match didn't have any stakes. It was made on the fly. Why are we still mingling the rosters? I know it's part of the whole transfer portal thing. Again, I care. It's cool, but it's like, what are the rules here? When does it end? Are we going to see anyone switch shows officially aside from Braun fucking Strowman? I assume Roman Reigns is Raw bound at this point. I say that 10 times fast. Roman Reigns is Raw bound, but it's not yet made official. Probably won't be until January 6th. So until then, only Braun is the only one who has switched shows. Okay, I mean, Sami Zayn being on SmackDown would make sense to open up the possibility of him facing Kevin Owens at WrestleMania. But the further along that we go with the whole KO thing, which was the best thing on the entire show, which happened right after the Sami Zayn-Carmelo match, it looks like Kevin Owens is going to be facing Randy Orton at WrestleMania. So, in a nutshell, we had Owens out there with the Winged Eagle title. Nick Aldis said you have it until the end of the night to come out to the ring, confront me, and relinquish the championship. Otherwise, you will not be employed here at WWE anymore. And before Owens can make his choice, and I thought this would lead to him attacking Nick Aldis, which would probably in storyline, require him to be fired, which Owens is no stranger to being fired in WWE. He's at least been fired in storyline twice, if not 3 times. He has been fired an egregious amount of times, and he would come right back. He's also quit and other shit like that. So he was not fired. Cody Rhodes came out for the first time since the heinous injury angle at Saturday Night's Main Event. I thought this was so fucking stupid. So fucking dumb. Now, I had people on Twitter respond to my tweet about why I thought this was dumb and try to tell me, Orton has past neck issues. Which, listen, honestly, to their credit, I get that. Now, I don't know if they told that story on commentary as to why Randy Orton's been out for so long. He got taken out with a fucking basic-ass pile driver. I'm not even comparing it to AEW where, they do it all the time. Why would Orton be out for 2 months? I'm not even saying that. In WWE, they don't hit pile drivers often, even though they do with the fucking, Canadian Destroyer. That's like a basic sleeper hold in this company, as it is in every wrestling company at this point. But anyway, people were like, Orton was taken out with a pretty basic-ass pile driver, but it makes sense because he has previous neck issues. Okay. But they played up the injury angle that Kevin Owens did to Cody Rhodes less than 2 fucking weeks ago, like he died. They ran off the list of injuries that he had in that tweet the next day on Twitter. And they were like, he has a cervical spine issue, blah, 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 like a basic broken neck or whatever. And then he's right back, showing no worse for wear less than 2 weeks later. That was just so fucking stupid to me. Cody Rhodes had a jacket on. Yeah, it's December in Tampa. Why was Cody Rhodes wearing a jacket? It was just ridiculous. And then, he was all angry at Kevin Owens, but he wasn't out there looking for a fight. This whole thing just felt rushed. You could have done this a week later, 2 weeks later. This just felt weird. This just felt weird as to why they had Kevin Owens out there, or rather Cody Rhodes out there, when they could have just saved him for next week, the following week. And again, people trying to tell me, well, they need him back for the Netflix Raw. No, they don't. Not every member of the roster, not every big star needs to be on that show. He could be on the second show or third show, whatever the fuck. I'm not even really sure what he would do on that first Netflix Raw anyway. We got Punk and Rollins, Roman and Solo Sikoa in Tribal Combat. A last woman standing match we found out earlier in the day on Twitter on Friday between Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship. What, are him and Kevin Owens just going to brawl? Why not just bring him back on that show? Yeah, I know it's 2 weeks of a difference, but it makes more sense than bringing him back within 2 weeks. That is just so fucking dumb to me. The package pile driver at that point, you just killed the move. They made it up to be like this whole big deal, and, Cody Rhodes might be out for a while. I know he's on the house shows, but in WWE canon, if it's not acknowledged on WWE TV, then it doesn't matter. So you could just say, well, that doesn't count. Okay, but then, I don't know, man. It was just dumb. I thought that was really stupid. And the end result of it being a ladder match, which we're, blowing the lead here. I'm skipping the lead. The end result of it being a ladder match for both belts of the Royal Rumble, Kevin Owens and Cody Rhodes for the Undisputed WWE Championship, is cool. I think I may have said that a week or two ago because I didn't come up with the idea. I saw someone else say it on Twitter right after the event, after their last match 2 weeks ago. And I thought, you know what, that's a really good idea, actually. They could do that. They're doing it at the Royal Rumble. So they're not doing it on the first SmackDown of the year, which, fine by me. They're not doing it at the first Netflix Raw, which would have been dumb to do just because that show is already packed as it is. Would have been a total afterthought, I think, in my opinion. Why not headline a show with that? It's not headlining the Royal Rumble, mind you, but that feels like a Rumble match to do. It's also not going to happen at Saturday night's main event. They're doing a second one of those already at the end of January, so they have a lot of shit coming up. I don't know how they're going to space this shit out. They're really loading up that Netflix Raw, which will be a big deal, don't get me wrong. But it's there are other shows as well, which is why I'm glad they're doing this match. Not on that show, but rather at the Royal Rumble. But that's not for another 5 weeks. So why not set this up for later down the road? What more can they do in the next 5 weeks for a feud that we've already seen play out over the last 4 months? It has been a great feud, don't get me wrong. It's been a great story. I've enjoyed it. But how much more can they really do between now and February 1st or 2nd, whenever the show is? I think it's February 1st. Not a whole lot. So I don't know why they just couldn't have waited to announce this match for another week or two. To do it on this show, I guess just because they needed a hot angle, was silly to me. It felt rushed. So I thought that was the best part of the show. The booking was questionable. The execution of the segment was great. I'm looking forward to the ladder match. But overall, this was not a good show. Not a terrible show. But like Strowman Theory, waste of time, who cares? Profits and Garza, good match, filler match. Sami Zayn, Carmelo Hayes, really fun match, filler match. The 6-woman tag team match, not filler, but it was kind of filler. Like, there wasn't really anything accomplished there aside from another fucking tease for the Money in the Bank contract, Naomi getting another title shot for some reason. I just did not really like the show. The championship celebration from Chelsea Green, again, like I said, I did not mind. Most people did not. Most people thought it was trash. No pun intended, with Chelsea Green and Michin having that dumpster match a couple of months ago. But, I thought it was fine. Just an overall kind of lifeless show. The fact they did not advertise anything for the show in advance told me, yeah, this is going to be a nothing show. They're clearly coasting with SmackDown and even Raw as well until they get to the Netflix Raw in a week and a half. Not even, like it's in like 9 days. So we have that to look forward to. Until then, though, that notion that, oh, yeah, they're not going to, rest on their laurels for the holidays, that's not exactly true. They have Raw this week I thought was good. SmackDown, not so much. So thank you guys for checking out my final SmackDown audio review for 2024. The show is going to 3 hours. God save us all. Next week. And I am still planning on doing SmackDown audio reviews, even with a 3-hour show. That just sounds not great, but, a WWE 3-hour show, they have a lot of filler anyway, so there's a lot less to talk about, for better or worse, but I will still do it. So next week, next Saturday, I think I'll be busy in the afternoon and the evening, so I'm going to try to pump out the review before I leave, and if not, maybe the next day. But we will do a SmackDown audio review for the first SmackDown of 2025 next week in here on the channel. I will be doing a SmackDown Lowdown review tomorrow here on the channel. That might be the last one that I do. I talked about this in my Raw Talk review a couple of days ago, but I'm not sure if I'm going to continue this. The Raw Talk reviews, we're doing it on Monday or Tuesday this coming week, but after that, I'm not sure I'm going to continue doing those going into 2025. Just with Raw going back to 3 hours, SmackDown now being 3 hours, it's just too much. I'll just catch the clips of these SmackDown Lowdown Raw Talk shows on fucking YouTube and not review the whole thing. So I will have a video out on SmackDown Lowdown, the latest one from this week tomorrow. But beyond that, though, we might be finished with those. I'm not exactly sure yet, so keep an eye out on that front. But anyway, guys, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I know AEW World's End is tonight, so I'll be looking forward to that and watching it live. Have a very happy new year as well. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.